on the 5th of December, I provided the President with a comprehensive legal opinion by one of South Africa's foremost senior counsels in public law, which outlined a fatal constitutional problem with the then bill. It's important that I highlight what was found to be unconstitutional with the bill. But if effectively there is a contradiction in the sequencing of how expropriation is supposed to take place between Section 7, 8, and 19. Section 19 envisages that where the expropriating authority and owner do not agree, that the amount of compensation to be paid, that there is a process to take place. So the authority, the expropriating authority or the government would have to go to court to get the court to determine just and equitable compensation. But Section 7 and 8 require that by the time notice of expropriation is issued and served, the amount of compensation must already have been determined. And that the court process to approve or to determine the amount referred to in Section 19 is that contemplated by Section 8. It's very clear that both processes can't exist, that they are irreconcilable with an internal conflict between the provisions of 7 and 8 on the one hand, and the provisions of Section 19 on the other hand. It's quite clear then that the conflicting provisions are irreconcilable with each other and are thus unworkable, rendering the expropriation bill and act irrational, vague, and unconstitutional.
Every country has an expropriation act and needs one. The problem with this one is that it gives very wide powers to government on all levels, also provincial level, also municipal level, to expropriate properties, not only for a national or public purpose, but also in public interest, such as for land reform or for black economic empowerment. It means that we sit with that kind of powers in the hands of officials of municipals, where over the last 40 years, we had the worst kind of examples of grabbing and misappropriation of powers and funds and corruption and nepotism. Inside, we have vast experience of taking government to court for this, with a number of our members who are also beneficiaries of the redistribution process in land reform, where they are simply kicked off their land for the benefit of well-connected cadres in local governments. That is why the signing of this act does nothing good for investor confidence.
There is a distinction that South Africans ought to draw between symbolism and substance. The bill is symbolic only at an aspirational level. It will not, in fact, transfer land from landowners to dispossessed and marginalized people. The South African government is very committed to private property as a concept, but it's very committed to the idea of private property. In fact, it worships private property. And the nature of the bill, there are two particular problems with it. The one is that it's a highly procedural bill, and some of the procedures are internally inconsistent. And so it makes it extremely difficult for the state to actually acquire property. The second is that its scope, substantive scope, is actually a very limited scope. The purpose of this bill under Section 2 and 3 is to enable the state to acquire property for its own uses. This is not the bill to transform property relations in the country. It's not the bill to transform land relations in the country. So I see the real critique of the bill being, because it's a highly procedural bill with vague and contradictory procedures, it will be ineffective. And also because it's a substantively limited bill, it will not be as disruptive to the property markets as the sort of a lot of misleading reportage has been on this bill.